Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming out to the Art of Zero Knowledge User Management, or how to handle the identities of your users before you know who your users are and before even your users even know how they want to get into your app or website. So, my name is Matt Sokup, and I'm a senior cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. And you're probably, when I say who your users are and how they get into your app website and this and that, let me show you what I mean. Let's jump into a demo right away off the bat. All right. So I have an app. In this app, we're reviewing businesses or restaurants or hotels. People can click in, and they can leave reviews. But if you're not logged in, I don't want you to be able to edit somebody else's review. I don't want you to be able to actually add a review anonymously. We want people to be accountable for what they do. So we have a sign up or sign in. And then within this, I want to be able to have internet. All right, we're going to transition right over to here. I want to So when we log in, I want to make sure that the users are able to enter either an email address or be able to sign in with Twitter or any other various network social identity providers. So as this spins up, I'm going to jump right into the slides and we'll come back to it. All right, so there's a couple different ways of identity management. There's what I'm going to call the easy way, and nothing's really easy. I'll call this a straightforward way. And that's when you know who your users are before you get into it. So this is like in the corporate setting. Somebody comes to you and says, all right, here are your users, and you know how they're going to be logging in. They're going to be logging in with like an email address, or you're logging in through Active Directory and whatnot. Then you have the not so straightforward way. And this is when the users come knocking at your door. You don't know who they are until they come and tell you who they are. And you don't know how they're going to log in. You might want to give them an email address way to log in, so they're creating their own credentials. You might want to give them a way that they can log in with Twitter or Facebook or GitHub. So you can do that second way with Azure Active Directory B2C. So what this is a white label custom provider that you can use to give authentication and authorization to your web apps and your mobile apps. It's highly available, it's secure, and it can scale to millions of identities. So customers can also use your social accounts. They can use Facebook, they can use Twitter, they can use GitHub, or like I was saying before, you can use your email address to create your own credentials and another password. And it also supports things like multi-factor authentication.
Can you also use that with your local AD for business?
I can't hear you offhand, so come to afterwards.
Use that with local business, local Active Directory.
Still, okay. Let's come afterwards. I'm sorry. So here's what I want to do. I have a user, and I have a data source. And all the app that I want to create here is I want to be able to sign up or sign in. And then I want to have personal and relevant information. I want to be able to edit my reviews. I want to be able to get my personal reviews back. That's what I want. This is all I want to do in my app. That's it. How am I going to do this? I am going to have my user. I have my Azure AD B2C instance up in Azure Cloud, and I have my data source. So first off, I'm going to go and invoke a policy. I'm going to say, I want to sign in. From there, I'm going to get, assuming I'm signing in correctly, I get a token back. I'm going to take that token and I'm going to make a request to my backend data source. And I'm sending that token along with that request. My backend data source then is going to verify it with Azure AD B2C, and everything comes through OK, I get the information back. In a nutshell, that's what's happening. So let's do it. Let's set this up. All right. In this demo then, I have an Azure AD B2C instance. There's a couple things I want to go through and show off about AD B2C. The first thing I want to show off is the identity providers. So here I can do several different things. And these are the things that I'm going to be able to log in with. So you can see I have email. And I've also set up another one with GitHub or Twitter. And I have a bunch of different other ones I can set up with as well, such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Amazon, and so forth. So when you go through and you say, all right, I want a Twitter login, I can go over here to Twitter itself. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a public and private key over here, taking those credentials, so to speak, also creating a callback URL, which is all in the documentation. So this is how Twitter knows how to call back to B2C. And then posting the credentials back into here. So that's all I need to do. So B2C is like an abstraction over the various identity providers. So now I could set up things like GitHub and Twitter and Facebook and only have to interact with them once. There's then the underlying users and user attributes. So when people sign up, I can ask them for, what's your job title? What's your postal code? Things like that. I don't have to ask them for it, but it's there. The actual users underneath everything. So I have this user, matt@codemailmatt.com. So you can see if I had asked for job title, it would have been posted in here. All right. Then there's the application. You can think of the application as abstracting over my mobile app that is going to work, I promise, eventually. The application then has something called an application ID, which will be important. And then it's going to have various URLs that it is going to call back to. So what I want to do here is I'm going to delete all of these. I want to put a new one in here. I'm just going to call it jwt.ms. And as soon as it saves, all right. So by putting that JWT-MS, all I'm saying is once I authenticate, I wanted to call this jwt.ms website. And the reason I did that is I have this other thing called policies. So policies define essentially a user experience that people have when they interact with B2C. So a sign up or sign in policy is exactly what it sounds like. It's what the user does when they sign up or sign in. So when I create one of these, I can specify which providers I allow them to use. So right here I have them all the ones I defined, Twitter and GitHub and everything. Which attributes I want to collect, and then which claims I'm going to actually return back to the app as well. And then I could set up other things, like whether I want to have multi-factor authentication to go with it. So I could run this right here by saying, my reply URL is going to be jwt.ms, and I'm going to hit this Run Now. And so it brings up this website where I can actually log in with. So I already have an account created. So it's going to be matt@codemailmatt.com. And I'm using my banking password here, which is ABCD1234! That joke got no laughs. No laughs. All right. Anyway, so it posted back, and this is the token that is sent back at jwt.ms. And jwt.ms is a great, great website which takes tokens and it decodes them for you. So you can actually see what's being sent back. So it says that the name here is Lebowski. The emails that come back is matt@codemailmatt.com. And it has the TFP means which policy that was invoked to get me to this page. So it's just a nice way that you can go through and debug what's coming back. And also has a claims tab, which actually says what each of these claims means as well. So what I'm going to go back into here, and I'm going to set the callback URLs of my application to be back to the what I had before, so I can interact with them with my app, with my mobile app and website. All right. All right, so that's setting up the cloud portion of the B2C app, or the B2C. The next thing I want to show off is actually how to do the authentication or verifying things on the back end. One of the things I'm using is an ASP.NET Core Web API that I have deployed up in an Azure App Service. This is done all with existing ASP.NET Core things, so there's nothing unusual I have to do. If you're used to authentication and ASP.NET Core, we're using JWT Web Tokens, and all I'm doing that's different is in the app settings, I'm just calling out, all right, this is my login, Microsoft.com TFP, I'm giving it the domain. This is just set up things that I get from when I set up the B2C service. So it's really just plugging in configuration tokens. And then during the startup, I have where is it? This add Azure AD B2C token. And this comes from one of the samples that we have out on GitHub, which will all be posted. I'll have a link at the end of the talk where you can get all this from. And this is just an extension method that goes out and helps me grab everything from this app settings JSON and puts it in the options authority and audience. So it's just a convenience method for me. So it's grabbing it from the app settings and putting it in here. And then when I actually want to go through and authenticate or make sure everything's authenticated, it's just using the authorize attribute in ASP.NET. And to check a scope, and a scope is a way to make sure that permissions, and I set a scope up within the application as well, just right here, this RVW all. I put that in my application in BWC. That actually gets sent back as well, and I can just check it here by looking through the user of the HTTP context and just see if that review all is in there. So it's basic what's being done already in ASP.NET. So there's nothing unusual being done to get at B2C. I'm also using, with this mobile app, Azure Functions. And Azure Functions, to set that up to communicate with B2C, there's an authentication node. And in that authentication node, there's an Azure Active Directory portion. And here I put into the client ID what my application ID was from B2C, and then an issuer URL. So this you just obtain, again, through the documentation. It tells you where to get it. And then finally, so that's all the back-end stuff. And then finally going through and grabbing the mobile app side. The mobile app side works through something called the Microsoft Identity Client, or the MCEL NuGet package. That's on .NET. There's also a JavaScript version, which you can get through NPM. There's also a pure Android version, Java version. There's also an Objective-C version. So you can do all, I'm going to be showing the .NET version, but you can do it all through your choice of platforms. There then is, when we log it on, start it up, there's two crucial methods. There's one that's called acquire token async. And what this is going to do, it's going to go out and actually try to log in. And you can see here, I'm saying I'm going to pass a scope. The scope variable is going to be the RVW all, which I have set right here. And then I'm passing other things like saying where you wanted to go get to, the authority. The authority happens to be the policy I want to call, and so on. And then there's another one down here called acquire token silent async. And what this does is that I can be cached. I don't necessarily have to go and call B2C all the time. If I already logged in once, I'm going to have everything cached. My token hasn't expired. There's no reason to go out and call it again. So the client, this MCEL client, takes care of everything for me. So let's run this. And I'm going to set a breakpoint as it compiles. All right. So I'm going to sign up or sign in. So right now the breakpoint came, and I'm not signed in yet, so it's going to just go out. And then I'm going to sign in under same credentials as before. And it comes back. So now I have in here an access token. And if I can get that to come up, I'm going to send that into the JWT-MS website. If I can get that to come up. All right. So I'm going to paste that in. And there's a couple things I want to point out. Is one, the name comes back, the email comes back, and we can see right here I also have a scope saying I got the RVW all permissions. So when I call out to the website, it's going to let me have it because that's what it's checking. I go through, and it shows me the reviews that I currently have. So now when I go into this cool restaurant review, I can view it. And if I go back to me, I can actually go through and start editing reviews as well. And then so when I actually call out to things is right here. This is where I'm actually sending the token. So this is the request message I'm sending. And this, I'm sending along a bearer token with it. So that, in a nutshell, is all I have to do to call out to B2C and use it. And I can log in under anything. If I log out here, I can go back in. And when this shows up, you'll see that I would have Twitter. I could log in with GitHub. And if I would enable multi-factor authentication, it would prompt me. It would send a text message to my phone, which I would have to enter to get through, and so on. All right, so internet's not cooperating. So we'll keep on going. So AD B2C, we have the cloud portion, where it creates accounts and handles identities for the users you don't know you have yet. It lets them come to you. You have the back end of things, Azure Functions, a web API, where you can use the existing built-in mechanisms to authenticate your users or to make sure they're logged in. And then finally, the MSAL, the Microsoft Identity Client. It's an SDK to obtain tokens and handle them for you. And then finally, this slide right here, if you follow this link, it'll bring you to a full functioning, what I was just demoing, web application, the web API, along as a function app, which has step-by-step reproduction steps to take you through everything else. And then finally, there's going to be more in-depth workshops and sessions here. Tuesday and Wednesday, workshops and sessions. So if this interests you, highly recommend it. So with that said, thank you very much. I really appreciate you all coming. Appreciate it. Thank you.